Hi everybody, it's Miss Wareham from Gordon Low Elementary, and I am here to read the next installment of Two Truths and a Lie. This story is by Amy Joan Paquette and Lori Ann Thompson, and I'm reading it with permission from Walden Pond Press. So there's another episode of Two Truths and a Lie up on our website you can enjoy, but basically I'm going to read you 3 stories and you need to decide which 2 are real and which one is a faker. And then perhaps you can play Two Truths and a Lie with your friends and family as something to do to help keep you occupied here. So we're going to move to Chapter 9, Curious Culture. Please play with your food. Food is for eating. Everyone knows that. But don't you know someone who don't you sometimes get the urge to, well, throw your food at someone? Wait, you don't? Well, we don't either. Of course not. Okay, maybe we do. Let's just agree that it's one of those urges that comes over a peaceful dinner from time to time. If this happens to you on the last Wednesday of August and you are anywhere near Valencia, Spain, you are in luck. Welcome to La Tomatina, the incarnation of all your squishy tomato food fight festival dreams. For over 70 years, a most unusual custom has developed in Buñol, a small town in the east of Spain, to which many thousands now flock every year in hopes of joining in the fun. Are you ready to get started? First, some rules. Here's what the city council has to say. Only tomatoes may be thrown. No rogue apples allowed. Squish before you toss, please. Safety concern or for maximum splattage? We don't know. Make way for the tomato trucks. Beep, beep. When the water cannon says it's over, it's over. Yes, that means you. Okay, so tomato tossing time. They don't call it the world's biggest food fight for nothing. Before 2013, incoming crowds during the festival would swell this 9,000-person town up to 50,000 people. But safety concerns prompted the local government to get involved. You now need a ticket to attend La Tomatina, and attendance is capped at around 20,000 festivals. This festival has been so successful, in fact, that copycat events are being held from Colombia to Costa Rica to Colorado. Just picture the scene. Buñol Town Square, about 11 a.m., thousands of bodies are jammed into the streets, standing side by side. Make way. It's the tomato trucks! Piles upon piles of cheap, overripe fruit are heaped up. But wait for it, wait for, boom! Go the water cannons, and it's on. There are tomatoes everywhere. Ooey, gooey, smushed tomatoes. Over 220,000 pounds of super ripe fruit, oozing rivers of juice and pulp everywhere. Everyone in sight is throwing, tossing, smashing, squashing. It's a tomato-hurling hullabaloo. Finally, after about an hour, the food frenzy starts to slow. The water cannons fire the second time, and the fun is over. Pulp-covered fighters make their way in search of showers, garden hoses, or local rivers for a much-needed cleanse. But that's not quite the end. I mean, think about it. It's like the whole town square accidentally fell inside a pot of spaghetti. Luckily, fire trucks are at the ready with their hoses a-squirting. High-pressured water gushes all over the square. Every bit of tomato goo is washed right down the drains. Not only that, but the natural acidity in the tomatoes actually disinfects and leaves the square cleaner than before. Now that's what we'd call a win-win. Which is just as well, because last year, the last Wednesday in August, will find tens of thousands of festival goers winding up their throwing arms, ready to do it all over again. Okay, so that's our first story, Tomato Throwing Madness. Our second story is Out in the Meadow Where the Marshmallows Grow. Let's see what this one's about. It's great to have something you can always count on to make your day better. Something like, say, marshmallows? These pillowy white treats are great for making s'mores, not to mention eating straight out of the package. When this glorious goodie first came into existence in the 1800s, it was made by whipping the sap from the mallow plant together with egg whites and sugar. Hello, marshmallow! Nowadays, commercial marshmallows are usually made using gelatin, but the plant-based form is seeing a whole new resurgence from a most unlikely, for some people, source, the fields of rural Iceland. As one of the most isolated countries on Earth, the island nation of Iceberg has long relied on agriculture as a key means of feeding its inhabitants. Local farmers make good use of the long daylight days of summer to grow not only edible foods, potatoes, carrots, cabbages, and more, but also fodder crops like barley, rye, and grass. Yep, grass, or as it's better known once it's dried, hay. What's so special about hay, you ask, and what does it have to do with marshmallows? Here's the thing. Most harvesters the world over cut their hay off at the base. The stalk itself, after all, is what will feed their livestock. However, back in the early 1900s, it was discovered that a unique soil combination gives Icelandic wild grasses an exceptionally fat and tender root. It turned out that those roots were very similar to the mallow plant, except 50 times more concentrated. Very quickly, special combines were designed that would pull the grass up by its roots rather than chopping it off at the base. The hay is then bundled into rounded heaps to dry with the roots on top. These roots are lopped off and used to make marshmallows. Because the weather in Iceland is frequently cool and rainy, great white tarps are thrown over the hay bales. This is a clever nod to what has become Iceland's greatest export, the humble marshmallow. It's important to note that those big pillowy drifts scattered across Iceland's fields are not actually giant marshmallows. Oh, the dream. But the roots gathered from just one of those hay bales can make enough marshmallows to fill a 3-story building. Just imagine that. Hundreds of thousands of them. With this kind of cheap and flavorful sap available, Icelandic marshmallow exports have skyrocketed, with local candy makers crafting elaborate specialty flavors. There's even a marshmallow festival held every year in early May, where locals outdo themselves to produce the most delicious mallows. Arctic thyme maple, pink rutabaga molasses, whipped blueberry meringue, check, check, and check. So that's the story of the Icelandic marshmallow craze and how a humble grass launched a booming industry that is quite revolutionizing this quiet country. So if you're feeling that marshmallow craving, don't hesitate to pop over to Iceland for a sampling, unless you already live there, in which case, look me up. I've got a terrific new flavor idea. That was a delicious idea. Okay, so we have 2 stories, tomato throwing, marshmallow growing, and finally, here, hyena, hyena, hyena. If someone asked you right now, what do you want to be when you grow up? A lot of things might come to mind. A teacher, librarian, a firefighter, maybe a chocolate taster. That's a real job. But how many people do you suppose would answer, someone who feeds bloodthirsty wild animals? It's time for you to meet the hyena men of Harar. First, a few pertinent pointers about our good friend the hyena. It's one of the fiercest predators on Earth. A typical specimen boasts over 100 pounds of bone-crushing force, with running speeds of 40 miles an hour and super keen senses of smell, sight, and hearing. They're infamous for consuming all of their prey, not just the meat, but every last bone, too. Okay, so definitely not your lovable pet pooch, but in many places on the African continent, hyenas are edging into everyday life. And we're not just talking about wild creatures ranging across the savannah looking for wounded prey to dispatch with their hungry jaws. Increasingly, packs of hyenas are moving into the urban setting. The Ethiopian capital city of Addis Ababa, for example, is home to up to 1,000 hyenas, which scavenge trash heaps and prey on unattended farm animals and pets. With this growing threat, what is a concerned citizen going to do? One group of people has found a solution. Let's shift our lens to the east a little, to the walled city of Harar. This hilltop city has been around for centuries, but these days Harar is known in countries around the world as the home of the hyena feeders. Say, what? The story goes that during a time of great famine, several hundred years ago, hyenas started coming into the city and attacking livestock and people and eating them. Desperate, a local elder came up with a solution. Porridge. Yeah. Certain volunteers began setting out porridge to feed the hyenas in hopes of keeping them away from local residents. Some sources say that this porridge has lots of rich butter in it, which the author feels completely explains why the hyenas may have stopped attacking. The porridge custom fell away after a bit, but the hyena threat lingered. So in the 1950s, a farmer got a bright idea. Remember, Harar is a city surrounded by stone walls. So if they could keep the hyenas from sneaking inside those walls, the city would be safe. And so this farmer began venturing outside the city, armed with scraps of raw meat. Gather round, all you hyenas. Munch, crunch, success. And so a new profession was born. Today, this feeding is a bona fide cultural custom, with hyena men delivering the nightly dinner parties, so to speak. It's even become a tourist spectacle, where visitors from overseas paying to come along on the expeditions for a chance to see these brutal predators in action. Make no mistake, the hyenas of Harar are nowhere near domesticated. Anyone who's ever watched them savagely tear apart a chunk of flesh will attest to this. Seriously, keep way back. But the hyena men take to their task with pride and skill. They call to individual hyenas, even giving some of them names. And the results? Well, nearby towns still suffer regularly vicious hyena attacks, but not Harar. They found a way to live in peace with the animals. This still isn't a pack you'd want to be running with any time in the near future. But it's nice to know that sometimes all it takes is some raw meat to stop a hyena. To stop a circle of horrible violence is a trip outside the wall, some raw meat, and a person brave enough to connect the two. So we've got our 3 stories. Hyena feeders, making marshmallows in Iceland, and the tomato throwing festival. I'll give you a chance to figure out which of your answers you're going to pick, and you can check on the next video to see the answer. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.